So welcome to CBM Calling. My name is Kathryn Scott, and I'm a global field staff for CBM. And I'm glad you've joined us as we talk about education in Guatemala. As you know, we are inviting churches and individuals and groups across the country to get active in mission this summer. Our goal is to raise $60,000 for CBM's educational programs in 9 countries. One of these countries is Guatemala, and we have a couple special guests here today to share about their experience. So first I want to introduce Byron, who's the National Field Staff in Guatemala. How are you, Byron?
Fine, Kathryn. Thank you.
I'm glad that you're here. This is actually the first time we're getting to see each other, so that's also fun. What are you doing for Active in Mission this year?
Well, we are planning to run, during these days. So we hope to run like 50 miles, during those days. So that's what I'm planning to do.
That's impressive. That's awesome.
Okay, I want to introduce this afternoon to Anna. She is part of one school in Guatemala. And thank you for your support and different projects that we have here with children. So education is so important. We believe in education for children. So that's what we are doing, all this kind of initiatives. So thank you, Anna, for sharing your experience today.
Thank you, Byron, and hi, Kathryn. Nice meeting you.
It's nice to meet you. Would you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
So I've been a teacher for quite some time. I taught English for 3 years and also Bible. And currently I am assisting the sponsorship program in Colegio Vida, or school, life school, if you want to translate it literally, because we have almost all of our students are sponsored. So right now I'm part of that part of the school.
How, in your experience, how did COVID-19 and the pandemic affect students and the educators and people working in the schools in Guatemala?
Wow, it was very hard because it hit us suddenly, right? Nobody was really prepared. And in my school, we didn't have any sort of online format for classes. We only had in-person classes. That's just how we worked. And when this hit us, first of all, for a period of time, we didn't know what to do, and kids were home, and we didn't have classes. The teachers started making study guides, so they would deliver the guides to the parents. Then the kids will just work on the guides with no direction, like live help from teachers, only their parents. And every week they would come back with their work done. And so it was this back and forth, right? But as you remember, because of the risk that we had, communication was very complicated. You had teachers or parents that had to spray their notebooks, right, with some sort of solution to clean them, right, because there was a lot of fear, and so that made it very hard. Then at half of the year, we were able to start having our classes through Zoom, and we had to upgrade our internet, like all of our tools, right, to be able to have this sort of communication online. So it was very hard. For some other schools, maybe it was easier because they had some sort of platform that they were already using, so they could rely on that. But for smaller schools, it was harder. Now, if we go to the public system, they had it bad because just they wouldn't have any sort of easy way to communicate online. I knew, like I said, I don't work in a public school, but I live in front of one, and what I hear from them is that they were working with the study guides for a long time, maybe until this year. So for 2 years, you had kids who, like, who knows really, right, if how they were learning, because there is no way to know, right? It was very harder for the public system.
Mm-hmm. That sounds familiar. I know that there were schools also here, but it's interesting to hear about your experience with that. What were some of the biggest struggles that you saw or heard about that students had because of the pandemic?
So one of the most difficult ones was the access to resources to be able to join the meetings, right? To join the classes. And you never think of these things, but for example, in our school, we had siblings, and all the siblings only had access to one phone that belongs to their mom, right? So some of them would join the meetings or like join their classes. Some of them would miss it. Like then we realized how hard it was for them. You might assume that all the kids have an access to computer, but it's not the reality, right? Then you notice that they can only use their phones, and it's not the best way, but that was what they had. So that's one of the struggles. One that is probably more difficult is that their parents' jobs were also affected. Like some of them lost their jobs, had to move. Some of the parents lived here in the city, and then they lost their jobs. They had to go back to their hometowns in the rural areas, where who knows if they were able to provide education for the kids. That was not the majority of cases, but we did have one or two kids that just disappeared in the school year because of those reasons.
So what does school look like for students right now? Are they back to in person? Are we still doing kind of the mix of packets and online? What's happening these days?
So our school is trying to get the kids back, because we just realized that it wasn't working 100% well for us, like I said, because of the lack of resources that some families have. And so we want to have everybody back. But we have an issue because the government has still a lot of restrictions up. So for example, kids must wear a mask, for example, like what's one of them? So teachers, right? Or teachers must limit the amount of time they speak. So things like that. Or for example, the control in the restrooms, you need to have only one student at a time. So it makes it a little bit more complicated. Even our recess times, you are not able to have a recess like you used to have it before, because you need to have all these measures, and that is a little bit unstable. Like they might change those rules at some point. So up to this point, the school has started their process, and we submitted all of the information they required from us so that kids can come back. So right now we do have in-person classes, but not the whole week. So some grades come on Monday and some others come on Tuesday, and like they alternate. So that's how it is right now, but we are looking forward to have everybody back. Public education is also having some kids back, so they are like restarting. Some private schools might already be working on an in-person format since the beginning of the year. So it depends, but our case is we have alternation in classes, but we're looking forward to have everybody back soon.
How do students feel about that? About coming partially and what are you noticing that the students are feeling?
So the first day they came back, you could see, even though they were in their mask, you could see they were so happy to be back, especially the little ones, because they were able to see their classmates again, and they had some time with interaction, right? On Tuesdays they have gym class. So it's difficult because you need to have gym class, but you have to keep their distance, and it's very hard to adhere to those regulations. But we had gym class and we had the kids come. You could see their faces, like they were so happy jumping around because they hadn't had that in a while. So I think that there's excitement and they want to come, regardless of the complications of having to adhere to the regulations.
So as you're still in this kind of partially in person, partially online, or figuring that out, what gives you hope as you look to the future of education in Guatemala? What brings you hope?
Well, what brings me hope is seeing that not just the private schools are coming back, but also seeing that the public education is working again and having the kids come back to school, because I believe that some of these kids have passed their grades but have not learned. And I would not, how are you able to know that, right? But I think that's the case. Some of them really just missed 2 years of their education, and it's crucial for them, because imagine like kids who are learning to read, right now they are just getting back to it and actually going to learn, what they had to have learned 2 years ago. So gives me hope in the middle of the difficulty is that we might have them learning again, and even though they didn't have the resources to do it through this time, they will get back on it.
Yeah, for sure. And it will be some difficult days, but it also, I know I had hope with my students as they started getting back, and I've seen them grow this year being in person a bit more. And so I know that there is hope as well for you. And so I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me today and to share about your experience, both in your school and also the public schools around you. I thank Byron for facilitating this and bringing us together to be able to have this conversation. And again, I just want to invite those of you who are watching this to get active in mission this summer in support of kids' education around the globe. We know the importance of education and the difference that these projects can have in children's lives. So whatever it looks like, to walk, to bike, to play softball, to whatever you need to do as a team, I pray that you get involved and make a difference. And so thank you for joining us.